Hey, I am so excited, and I'm not lying. I'm so excited. This is my favorite subject matter, things to talk about, and it's what I've been learning difficultly for the past decades. I hope you guys had a great time, and if you have any questions or anything, let me know. And I hope everybody at home had a great time. Thank you guys for joining me. Thank you, Michael Zinn, for filming for us. Thank you, Tranquility Within.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world it didn't exist.
Hey,
Hey, hello, welcome to the live stream of consciousness. Joining us
what
is
is up,
Ozzy Ozcat, who's going to show you his butt.
Ozzy Ozcat? What's up, Ozzy?
Hey, Ozzy's stealing my milk. How's it going, everybody out there in La La Land? If my life and Michael's life and the lives of some of our friends are any indication, it's been a little rough.
Holy moly, yeah, man! Talk about
Let everybody know what
astro
you're dealing with.
cosmic energy, man. Seriously, the energy
yeah.
is bad. I think I had my car accident before the show, right? I said I
Yeah,
had
you
my
mentioned
car.
it last week. That
I
you
had it last week. During the week, I saw so many, not happening, but like on the side of the road and stuff, like so many front end collisions and heard so many stories of people who were having accidents. The energy out there is freaking nuts. What's up, Taylor?
Yeah.
Good to see you. What's up, everybody? What's up, Ninja? What's up, Angela?
I was saying this to somebody, but I mean, let me see if I can explain this in a better term. And this is suspicions I have, but this is like things that have been said by certain spiritual people that
Uh-oh.
there was something going on in the energetic lifespan of the Earth, and the Earth is its own little living organism, and that it was separating like a cell, and that one side was moving into sort of higher dimensional something, and this is kind of almost like kind of biblical kind of stuff of like the people who are chosen. Well, people are being chosen by just whoever can vibrate at a certain frequency is
Right.
frequency. And the other people who can't vibrate at that frequency, they're kind of going the other way to this other Earth. And one thing's going to be happening to this denser Earth, and another life cycle is planned for this higher vibrating Earth. And that
Wow.
in this moment, as we move into this higher vibrating, path for Mother Earth, that the dense energy that we were carrying around with us yesterday was not going to be allowed to come with us, and that we were going to all have to shed, this sort of like cosmic energetic weight, so that we could move into this lighter state of being and continue to evolve spiritually with the planet. And I've certainly been feeling like I'm seeing a lot of evidence of that, of especially like within the spiritual community. Like there's some cool
It's an
people.
interesting way to look at it, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's some cool people I listen to, like Victor Odo, who's like a spiritual kind of guru guy. Really, I enjoy his channel. He's on YouTube, and I think he's on Instagram or whatever.
Victor Odo.
And Victor will kind of like come in and give these little energy updates, and he is always on the money for what I'm feeling. And often when I'm having a hard time, I will literally just go check out his channel and go, I wonder what Victor's saying right now. And
Wow.
invariably, I will watch his channel and he'll be like, so some of you might be going through something right now. And he will describe it. He'll describe exactly what I'm experiencing. And in general, it seems to me that there has been especially over the past like year in particular, there has been this genesis of sort of like rising tensions. But I
Mhm.
think all of these things are, we talk about the momentum being built up,
For
energy.
sure.
They're an excuse or an opportunity for the universe to let a little air out of that, can that is like building with all of this
Pressure.
carbonation, and like some of it needs to come out
Carbonation.
or it's going to explode.
Right.
And to let that air out of the balloon so it goes and sink down. I think that we're really in that time. And my friend actually just hit me up just like a couple days ago. She happened to hit me with like this little message of this energy update to something that like she subscribes to. She'll
Yep.
occasionally,
Yep. You were talking to it
and
about it.
she was going, and the message was just like on the money
Yeah.
for that sort of thing. And I have been at this place where I've been like, I can't take any more of this. I've been going through this for a really long
Yeah.
time. Like, I don't understand. Like, I keep, based on my understanding of things, like the pendulum needs to swing back the other way. I'm putting
Sure.
good energy in and putting the right energy into this thing. And it seems like I have been perpetually for the past few years, just sort of experiencing the previous momentum that I was putting into my existence and
Sure.
not experiencing the great momentum that I've been setting up for myself now. And it's like, at some point,
Right.
I know I got to start eating and feeding from the plate that I've been
Right.
preparing for myself all
Well,
this time, as
right.
opposed to eating that old meal that I was preparing in my 20s, which is
Right.
like all
Right.
that momentum I set up then has been paying off in a lot of ways that haven't been awesome in the past few years. But I've
They
spent
haven't been awesome.
they have not been. But
Yeah.
I've spent the past decade really consciously
Right.
building a new path for myself.
Right.
And I just kind of keep going, when do I start eating that meal? When do I
Well,
when
I was thinking, all I've been thinking is, what is the universe trying to tell me? What is the universe trying to tell me? We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah. Well, and I really wanted to talk about that actually, of like,
Yeah. Well, what anybody out there got any stories? What's going on out there? Anybody feeling that energy like like something's not right, or I don't even know how to describe it. I like what you were saying earlier. We were talking and you were just talking about uh it reminded me of that, to an arrow to go forward, it's got to be pulled back. And I felt like I was being pulled back just that extra bit, to propel me forward just that extra bit, because the situation with the car didn't get any better. It got worse. It
yeah,
was, the insurance covered some of it, but not all of it. And I've got to actually pay for some of the extra loan. But the thing is,
I'm so sorry about that.
and I
Earlier.
know you are, and we were talking about this earlier, and you're like, maybe the lesson is to stay in faith, right? You were saying that earlier, and
Yeah.
and I was like, you know what? I think I have gratitude for who I am and the way that I process things, because I'm upset a little bit, and I'm like, damn, how am I going to deal with this? This is like, it puts me a little bit deeper in a financial hole. But overall, I'm like, it is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, truly, that's what I feel. It is what it is, and it's going to unfold the way it's going to unfold, and I'm going to adapt to whatever way it unfolds. If I can't get a new car right away, I'll adapt. You know what I mean? I'll get
There-
rides places or whatever.
There's layers to this, and I'm going to psychoanalyze
Let's
you
do it.
my friend, because I love you, and I think it's a real good learning moment. Because I was talking to my girlfriend earlier today, and it was really something to the effect of, um, in the like she rolls in like the same kind of circle of people out here in Los Angeles that I've been kind of hanging out with, really more by necessity, like we're in the
Mhm.
music business out here in the rock and roll world.
Right.
And I have sometimes this bit of like ambivalence where like people aren't sure how to take me. They kind of
Right.
scratch their heads
Right.
whether or not I'm as genuine as I come off, because so many people are putting on fronts, and most people don't really trust themselves, and they sit there
Sure.
going, I don't know, I don't want to trust him too much. He seems really awfully trustworthy, but maybe it's all a trick. But being with my girlfriend Julie, who's really just an incredible person, and very well liked in the community, and just really sweet and kind to everybody. She's the person who, like, she's just turn to you and be like, "Oh my God, you're so beautiful!" Like, but she means it, like really means it,
Yeah.
and I see her light up people's
You
lives all
feel
the
it.
time.
You feel it when she says it. Yeah.
Like, oh my God, really? You like this dress? Oh, thank you. So
Yeah.
she's really genuine and really sweet, and she's a lady, a cute little redhead. She's really young in the community, so there's a lot of people really gravitate towards her, and I think that being alongside her has been of benefit to me in terms of really making everybody else who was sort of like on the fence about me click over into, oh no, we like him. Like I wasn't sure, but now I'm sure. I like you. You're
I
cool.
don't think as many people were not sure as you think, but I hear you.
And this is sort of me speaking in a very 3D.
It's from your perspective. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is what I was saying to Julie as we were
Right.
talking, because she said something to the effect of, she's like, I think that little bit of unsureness comes from the fact that you're not sure. And
Exactly. Oh, I've been saying that a lot this week.
and
What's
hold
up,
on.
Tim? I see Tim just popped in there. What's up, Timmy?
Yeah. So what I realized was, well, it's not exactly like that. It's a couple hoops to jump through to get to that. Because it's not that I'm not sure about myself. I'm very sure that I'm a good guy, that I set out to be nice to everybody, that, I'm kind and forthright and, loyal, and, that I'm a good friend. However, I do leave people's opinion of me open to their interpretation. Like, I don't go around thinking I'm God's gift to this earth, everybody must like me. Like, I'm very much like, I do the best I can, and the best I can is being a good guy, as much of the time as I possibly can.
Right.
And I think that there's every reason to like me, but that's up to you. It's you to choose. You get to choose.
Yeah, but there's a lot of crabby people out there, and they're just reflecting themselves when they don't like you.
Well, and this sort of the thing is of the neutral bit of the fact that I'm leaving it up to them, and now they're reading me on another level, and on another level, and on a number of other levels, I am unsure. I'm not unsure about myself as a friend interacting in the world, but I am a little unsure about myself because I'm such a perfectionist. And so, I always kind of like, when I was younger, like I really needed to get reinforcement. Like, is this script any good?
Validation.
Have I actually done a good job? Am I actually handsome? Like, I don't know. I don't really think that I am. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm unsure how to feel about myself on a lot of levels, and largely stemming from my perfectionism. So it's not so much that in this instance, I'm doing that exact thing where I'm unsure about me. I'm not. I'm unsure about me in more existential ways, but that energy is being felt and it's translating into a thing. So what you're saying here about how, I'm really grateful, and you're absolutely really grateful. That's true about you. But as your friend, I've seen you sort of hold yourself into a pattern of, I don't want to say loss, but in sort of like a position of, well, I got to make money, and like a doubt that there's any better for you, doubt that things can get much easier, doubt that tomorrow is going to look, any better than yesterday did. And I feel like to a large degree, I've seen you sort of like we've talked about this before, in a little bit of a holding pattern where a lot of your decisions come from a place of what was the case yesterday. Well, yesterday I was in a position where if I lost a little bit of money, then rent was going to be difficult, and this was going to be difficult. And I know I've encouraged you, like, oh man, take a risk on yourself, and like have and know that, like, so you are doing that right and grateful thing for yourself in terms of something bad happened, but I'm really grateful anyway. You are grateful.
Could be worse, right?
Yeah, but you aren't relinquishing that sort of worry that things might get into some sort of untenable place for you, where you won't be able to recover or something like that. And
Right,
and these things
right,
get reinforced into our system. I have similar things as well.
right.
What I said to you when I said, "Why do you think this is happening to you?" And then you were like, "I don't know." I keep kind of asking the same thing, like, what's the lesson here in the universe?
Right,
I said, well, maybe the lesson is that we're not having enough faith in tomorrow, that what tomorrow
right,
will bring, that things are going to get better and brighter and easier as each day
right.
goes by. And the universe has literally gone, oh, yeah, you want to worry about something?
I'll
Here
make it worse.
you go.
Right, 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 right. The
You
rain
got
dance syndrome,
something to
right,
worry about. Maybe if
right,
I make it a little heavier, you'll go, all right, I don't want this to get any heavier than this. So
right,
I'm going
right,
to
right.
having faith right now,
I
even
no, no,
though
I hear you. I hear you. But I honestly, I don't. I do feel that all the time. Like I know, I don't even. I've replaced the word believe with the word no. I don't even just believe that things are going to get better and be better. I know they're better, but I also say, when I say that, I say things are good, things are better. Why? And I, maybe that's what I'm limiting myself to do, to be like, okay, stop being so
I
grateful
think,
for where it's
yeah,
at
that's a
and be
good
grateful for where it can
perspective.
be. And by the way, I just want to say, a couple of people out there, Angela said, I was asking people about the energy and what they've been experiencing. Angela said something pulled me and my husband to see a Facebook post that led us to help a wonderful man. So I know Angela experienced the opposite. She experienced some good things and is in a place where, she's helping this
Taylor
guy who needed some
is
help, and
a
she
good
was telling me
person.
about it. And then yeah, Taylor was saying something as well. She became friends again with somebody who originally parted on bad terms. So those are, I think, good energies that are
Maybe the
coursing through the universe right now.
answer is around the corner. I'm still dealing with ramifications of my wisdom tooth, though they are maybe getting better. I hope getting better. My girl Julie, she really injured her finger at work the other day. Her pointer finger, she smashed it between a sledgehammer and a
Mhm.
pipe. So I've been trying to help her deal with some of the ramifications of that today. But it's interesting. We talk about gratitude, and I've never really spoken about this before, but it's something that I've been like. I just kind of spoke to Julie today about it because I was thinking I wanted to talk about it on the show and trying to figure out how to put it into proper words. Um, I think I've spoken before about sort of there being like 5 stages to figuring out the right balance of a thing. You swing far to the left, you swing far to the right, you go a little bit less far to the left, a little bit less far to the right. And then somewhere after having that whole experience, you learn where the middle is.
Right.
But really, what I've come to see the middle actually is, and this is a building upon that glass is half full, glass is half empty thing, like, but what is it,
Mhm.
or if you think about in terms of there's hot and there's cold, and what are both of those things? That's just the temperature.
Mhm.
And we wouldn't even know if we lived in a world where the temperature was constant. We would have no appreciation. We'd have no conscious idea of what temperature was. You know,
Right.
it's only in experiencing, the Goldilocks thing where you're like, this
Variations, right.
spot is too hot, this spot is too cold, this one is just right, that we actually we maneuver to that thing. There's no appreciation for just right.
Right.
Just right
Right.
just is, something that just is. We don't know what's going on because it's always been like that. It's never changed. And then all of a sudden one day things change and you're like, oh my goodness, I did not realize how lucky I was, you know, and
Right.
breaking up a relationship with my wife, there were certain things that immediately I was like, wow, I didn't know that this was a problem for me. Eventually there was certain things where I was like, wow, I'd gotten together with somebody so young, I didn't have an appreciation for how positive some of these things were, just having somebody around all the time, or whatever it is, because I just hadn't really gone through that moment of being an adult where I was just by myself.
Right. Right.
um, it's nice to have some emotional support, even when it's somebody that you're not always feeling at odds with or whatever. So
Right.
appreciating a thing takes being taken out of that comfort zone and going to the right, going to the left. And I think that the true measure of balance is learning gratitude for the wrong answer. The right answer is sort of easy to find, and even though they say there can be too much of a good thing. So there's a balance to that right answer, but where that balance falls up against that wrong answer, the it's too hot, or of it. I mean, granted, the too hot, too cold. I mean, each one of those things eventually you're going to get frozen. Eventually, you're going to get burned, even though it's just
Right.
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 It's about getting to the edge. The example that I was using today, which is something when you and I were we had a cool little shamaning session a couple weeks back. I got this message about slowing down, and I was seeing this sort of place that I was at where I appreciated so strongly what I thought was the right answer, which was consistent, persistent, passionate, attack until the job was done. And that's right. I'm not wrong about that. However,
Right.
take that too far, you break your fingers.
Right.
You grind yourself into the ground and break your back.
Not
Over time.
balanced, right?
You need to stop. You're overdoing it. That's not to say that persistence and that constant and that passion isn't the exact answer, but it can't be that to the detriment of your body's ability to do it. But it is in that making the mistake that we get that balanced appreciation. And we have a tendency to sort of like look at things as like right and wrong. And what we're searching for is balance. And the balance is not so righteous, because the balance is a loving appreciation for the wrong and what it taught us. How we so, because the moment we actually have gratitude for that tipping point is the moment where that tipping point has really soaked into us, the baptismo moment, as we've soaked up in loving gratitude, the lesson of, what, I like to be fast, but I'm going to go just slow enough that I don't trip over my own feet.
Right.
When that happens, I end up hurting myself, and that's so not worth it. It's not worth being speedy, and or is it going to matter that I'm going 4 miles over the speed limit more that are going to make me susceptible to getting run over or in a terrible car accident or whatever, and going to get me there maybe a minute and a half faster or something stupid, or just taking my foot off the gas just that much more so that I'm not worried about any of those things. And know that overall, in the big picture, that's the thing I want to do. The right answer is some sort of balanced appreciation for the wrong answer, and the right answer done with wisdom and not overdone.
For sure. Yeah. No. Well, listen, I'm grateful I learned my lesson not to look at my map while I'm behind a big truck. I already knew that, but I relearned that lesson. I guess that's a good thing, But listen, again, I am definitely in the flow, and that whole analogy you made with the Earth's kind of splitting into these two densities. I definitely, me, I'm along with that whole thing. It's an interesting way to see it. I mean, I'm wondering what that looks like on the other side of it, but I feel like I know which side I'm on.
Well, it's very interesting, and in turn, again, more things that you and I spoke about a couple of weeks ago now, in terms of the multiverse, and that
that's what it was making me think of. Yeah,
that we were constantly sort of crossing paths with others based on where our consciousness was in relation to them. So sort of like, if we were thinking of somebody, let's say, as a racist, like that, we were going to get the most racist aspect of them. If we were thinking of them as sexist, we would get the most sexist aspect of them. If we were thinking that everybody that we met were just good people, fundamentally filled with love, who cared about their friends and their family, that we could get that too. That we would be tuning in to sort of the multiversal perspective, and we would end up living in that universe.
Manifesting the way we want. Yeah.
Yeah, and like, because it's like when you say we're two ships passing in the night, that's literally, kind of what's happening on every occasion when you're running into somebody.
Right.
I saw that person, and we ran into each other for a second. We were in alignment, and then woo, and they went that way, and I went this way, and then woo, here we are, and we passed by each other again.
Right.
And,
Right.
and we can pass by at the right place in that path, or we can pass by the wrong place, and that we're sort of dictating it to a certain degree. And I think it's one of what's her name? She's the hypnotist. She's an old lady, passed away. But she's got all these hypnosis schools across the country, and she's written these books called The Convoluted Universe.
Who are you thinking of? I don't remember.
Will come to me.
Angela says, almost like a Mandela effect. Interesting, because I have been hearing so much about the Mandela effect lately, and it's become mainstream. And in a way, I feel like, well, I think that just diluted it to the point where people don't even see how significant that it might be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely. What's the idea of, like, you're from another universe? You're from the universe where it's the Berenstain Bears. I'm from the universe where it's the Berenstain Bears.
I mean, listen, for
like,
me,
as an example, can I explain this? But here
yeah. Well, for me, when I first, went down that rabbit hole, for me, the biggest thing was C-3PO and his silver leg.
Oh yeah, I don't remember at all
because I know, for me, he was all gold.
He was all gold. For me,
yeah. And then when I dug around, I found some old toys from Kenner where he was all gold, and I was like, look at this, and they're like, nope, he was wrong, and I don't know, I don't remember where that went, but I was heavily into like researching the Mandela effect at that time, and man, that it's just so crazy, the whole everything surrounding it, Yeah,
and Jim Carrey is like a linchpin of, like, he's done these momentary impressions from some of the most iconic movies, and his impressions stand in every movie he's ever done as the thing that I remember, the quote being or whatever it is, but the actual movie where he's quoting it wrong. And I know that it's like, yeah, he was quoting it wrong the whole time. People did, that is weird. Like, so many. He was quoting every one of these things wrong. Every single time I saw it, I was like, yeah, right there. That's that thing I remember. But
right.
He's quoting it all wrong. The one that stuck out for me so hard, because I'm a quarter Jewish, and I was raised in, with a certain amount of, Jewish tradition or whatever, because on my great grandfather's side.
Oh yeah,
yeah, my great grandfather's side, he was Jewish, so there used to be, like, little holidays over there. We'd occasionally go to your grandparents
and shit.
Yeah, and I had a lot of friends who were Jewish. I grew up in Dix Hills, which is really Jewish area. Went to a lot of bar mitzvahs.
Yeah, Dix Hills.
And I love to read Dr. Seuss, and also published through the Dr. Seuss imprint was what I now know to be the Berenstain Bears. However, I promise you, I'm an English major, and I used to joke to myself as a little kid that they were the Jewish Bears, the Berenstain Bears. It was spelled Stein. Just like the Jewish people that I knew. And I remember my dad explaining to me, because there was some movie, maybe a movie that he liked, a comedy called My Favorite Year. And it's about Mel Brooks. The main character, Benji Stone, is about Mel Brooks. And I think Mel Brooks had changed his name. He changed his last name to be less Jewish. And he was explaining to me how lots of people had changed their name and like different things, like, so that they could, like, sort of like Americanize themselves and stuff. So this was a conversation when I was younger. And when I saw the Berenstain Bears, and I used to read these books all the time, I used to go, ha ha ha, the Jewish Bears, the Berensteins. They're a bunch of Jewish. They're little Jewish family bears. And I just thought that was so funny.
Right.
Because they were the Berenstain Bears, and I thought it was funny that, like, they were in Hollywood.
You remembered very specific things about the Steen part.
Yes, and like, they would have just been. Too. They would have been the Berenstain or the Berenstones. Again, making jokes about that Hollywood thing. If it was Stain, I never would have made this intellectual leap. It was literally based upon that was a Jewish
Right.
suffix.
Yeah, yeah. I'm right with you on that one.
Their name was Jewish. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's the Jewish Bears. That's how you know, because it's Steen, like, and that maybe they would change their name if they moved to Hollywood, and this is just me being a kid who loves puns and writes poems and like does all this shit. And every time I would look at the cover, I would just be ha 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 ha, my little joke with myself.
Right.
It's the Jewish Bears, right? And when I read the thing, and like I'm looking at the Mandela effect, for fun, just like engaging in some of these things, looking at this stuff, that heard the concept. And when that came out, I had not noticed a change in my universe, and I'd been reading those books to my children,
Right.
and I literally went, "What? No, it's not."
And you went and looked.
I ran off to go find the fucking books. I'm like, no. And I run into my children's room, pulling through some books, and I pull it out, and I'm like, what? No.
Right.
I swear to you guys, like I am
awesome. That's awesome, man. That's a great mentality. So let's talk to our audience, man. What is your biggest Mandela effect? Let's hear it. Let's talk about the Mandela effect.
Has any Mandela effects of their own that they know.
Mine for sure is C3PO, because I mean I had little toys, that were all gold. His leg was definitely not silver. The craziest thing is,
hold on, because I don't appreciate this, Taylor. Taylor's got a comment there. She says, misremembering a quote is very specific Mandela effect, usually known as the beam me up Scotty effect. Yes, this is a bit of silliness where there was something that came about as like a cultural something where there was Scotty and there was beam, and people just put that together on their own. And like, because Star Trek, it was just a constant thing where this was the thing and it was constantly being repeated. Not that line like that, but just those tropes were being repeated on the show. When you have a movie like Star Wars and the way Luke, I am your father, versus the real version of the line, like, I'm sorry, man, I've seen that so many times. Like the most remembered line of the Matrix, Morpheus doesn't say, and I call bullshit.
Right. It's crazy. It's so
he
crazy.
Absolutely said that. I remember it. I was saw that movie on opening
so
day.
Here's a good one. Do you know about this one? Were you Were you a fan of James Bond?
Less so. So James Bond.
Okay, so
there was somewhere I was like, whoa. I'm sorry, but I don't remember. I remember it like that, and I think this notion of like everybody's just idiots. Like, is this? Come on.
No way. So in James Bond, there was one movie called Moonraker, and there was this character called Jaws, and he was this big dude, and he had these metal teeth. Yeah, his whole mouth was made of metal, but it's like, and he would like bite through cables, and it was like, it was pretty crazy.
Wasn't he the guy from Happy Gilmore? Who's the big giant man where the golf ball lands on his foot? He's like, hey, shoot!
It might have been, yeah. I think it might have been him. Anyway, there's one scene in the movie where everything gets destroyed, and Jaws is like a bad guy, and this little petite girl comes out, and is like, just smiles at him, and he smiles back, and they fall in love. And when she smiles at him, she's got braces on, and that's the whole point of them smiling at each other and falling in love. She never had the braces on. And I went back and I looked, and there's even people who have taken the scene of the movie and magnified it and said, look, this has been retouched. You can see there was braces there originally, because in all of the new films there isn't. It's just the Mandela effect blows my mind, man. With things that I am so sure of, that I saw that, I saw that way, like the Berenstain Bears.
There are tons that you'll see and you'll be like, no, I remember it always being like that. Like that's how I remember it.
Yeah. Some of them I'm like, oh no, that's always the way it was. Yeah,
that's always how it was. But like the thing with C3PO's legs, when all of a sudden, when I noticed that, it was on an action figure. I saw a C3PO toy, and he had a weird leg. And I remember kind of turning to my buddy Aaron, and I went like, "What's with C3PO's weird leg?" And he was like, "His leg's always been like that." I'm like,
"What do you mean? Yeah,
no, it hasn't.
Right?
What? Right. No, it was always all gold. It was gold."
Right. And then there's a part in one of the later movies where they like replace all of his parts, so he gets to all gold again. but I'm telling you, in the first movie, he was all gold. He didn't have,
Dolores Cannon is the name of that hypnotherapist.
Dolores Cannon, yes.
He would take people into a deep state of basically a state of past life regression where
Right.
she would put them in between their lives. And in this state in between their lives, they were essentially connected to what is often known as the Akashic record.
Yep.
And
Yep.
from that state, she would bring back all of this crazy information. And she wrote, I think there's like 5 different books called Our Convoluted Universe. And there is some amazing, amazing things in these books that are
Yeah.
very, really, really make some sense. Just are easy, I should say, to are very sensical, and you're like, wow, if things are, if people are being reincarnated in energies, but like, of course, it's like this or whatever it is. And then there is some like next level craziness, and she talks a lot about the New Earth and what would happen. And again, in that idea of like, well, we're going to hit people at our perspective. If we believe that they're bad, we're going to get their bad. If we believe that they're good, we're going to get their good. She was saying that sort of this separation, this separation of the old earth and new earth was going to work in such a way where we wouldn't notice. We wouldn't actually notice that anything had changed, that our vibration was going to change in such a way that we were going to migrate away energetically, sort of magnetically demagnetize from certain situations and certain people who were also going to demagnetize and spread away from us.
Mhm.
And that there would just be this sort of separation that would occur that would go completely unnoticed by the population. And then it wouldn't really be this, sort of biblical notion that you kind of see in like, this is the end, where
Right.
blue lights come down from the sky and people are, these are the chosen people who have been chosen. But what was really happening was just sort of a magnetic repolarization, and certain people were moving into this part of the multiverse where the earth was moving energetically this way, and then these other people were going with the earth where it was moving energetically in this other direction.
Right.
And everybody's lives would roll out and finish in the way that they would, but separate. But
So you think that we're going to be in separate dimensions? Oh, you just reminded me of something, by the way. Hold on a second. I want to just pop this up. Oh. Boom. It was Terrence McKenna.
Oh, LSD birthday.
And the founder, and yeah, the LSD was founded the same day on not the same day, he was not the same year. But
I'm really digging something that I see on the bottom of the earth in our picture. It looks like the tiger's face. You see, it's a tiger's nose, and you can see the nose, and then it kind of looks like the cheek with the stripes and some whiskers. Just kind of looks like the nose.
Yeah, I see that, looking like a little face, right?
Yeah, I keep seeing that. Going, that's cool.
Cool.
Yeah. So this is like nutty. I mean, I call it nutty in terms of, for mainstream people to entertain any of these notions, it's sort of insane because without context of so many possibilities. But I'm just somebody who really takes in all things and tries to consider the way these things might work and if they could work in one way or another. And I do see that there's room for these sort of things, especially with the Mandela effect, which again, it is a multiversal collisioning of, we've got multiple people operating in the same place, but to them, the world went down a little bit differently. Like the biggest one, and why it's called the Mandela effect, of course, is because there are people who remember seeing Mandela's funeral on the television years ago, and they have vivid memories of the TV coverage. Was basically, they said that the TV coverage, it was like when Prince Diana died or something. It was
right. They remember it vividly. Yep.
Yeah, a month of television coverage about how he died, and then all of a sudden he gets released from prison, and all those people went,
"Huh?
No, he's dead. I saw a month's worth of TV news."
Right. So let me know
to speak at his funeral.
Let me know what do you think of? I hear all the time that that's connected to CERN and the Great Collider, and now I found out that the Collider has been shut down for the last few years because they've been upgrading it to be like 10 times as more powerful.
Well, there's some very interesting things about CERN. I mean, so
Right?
there's some really nefarious, interesting, points of interest that have been connected to it. But at the very least, what CERN is doing is very. I got questions, man. I got a
Yeah,
lot of
man.
questions.
They're playing. They're playing.
I think there's a lot.
Angela says a few times. I swear, I parked in one spot at Walmart, and my truck is across the lot.
Hey, man, there. I
The
haven't had.
Mandela effect.
Yeah, I haven't had any of those experiences myself, but there are a lot of people who claim regular, sort of experiences like that. Odd
Yeah.
things
Oh
like
yeah.
my keys were missing. I looked all around for them. I came back home and they were on the coffee table.
Right.
I swear to you, I looked at that fucking coffee table a million times. That was the center of where I was pacing. It was not on the fucking coffee table. And then, all of a sudden they're back. What the hell's going on? And I mean, there's really a lot of interesting, sort of compelling, answers.
Possibilities.
Possible.
Yeah.
There's a phenomenon that I just heard about today, which was like, because I pay attention to the coast to coast. I tend not to listen to the actual podcast, but they've got a
Right.
website where they'll post up different things, a latest sighting on Bigfoot or a UFO that
That's
somebody.
Terrence McKenna, right?
No,
No,
Coast
that's the other
Art,
guy. Art
Art,
Bell, right? Art Bell. Yeah, yeah.
and or what
Yes.
is it? Passed
Yes,
away.
yes, yes, yes. I remember.
The
Yeah, yeah.
show still goes on, and there's
Yeah.
still all sorts of cool, compelling guests. Generally speaking, like I don't need to friggin' hear 2 hours on one subject. My ADD is just like too. That's too much for me. I like to bounce around and like hear as much information about different things as I can, unless I'm watching a really densely packed documentary that's got tons of information in it. That's fun for me. But to just hear two people talk and do an interview about a thing with one person who had
Right, right.
experience, like I'd rather get like a 10-minute version of that thing and move on and experience some other things. But
Mhm,
what they're talking about is an invisibility syndrome, spontaneous involuntary invisibility syndrome. That there
Whoa.
are people, and a lot of it concentrated in America, who are reporting that they are disappearing and being unable to be seen by anybody in their clothes, and like they couldn't
I
see me.
have not heard of this. That's
I have
crazy.
never heard of it, and I just started looking into it because I was like, "What now? That's fucking crazy. Tell me more." Um,
It sounds like that show Soap. I don't know.
yeah, and I mean, and this is the type of thing where if you're going on, well, what has been propagated by science? This isn't something that's been tested in any way. This is just individuals who are claiming to have had an experience. Most of them like pretty terrifying to them. Of like
I can imagine it would be terrifying.
really some really weird shit happens to me. Occasionally, I've been invisible. There was this one talk of this girl and her friends, teenagers, who got arrested for shoplifting, and she rode in the police car, all these things, and was at the police precinct, and she just realized that nobody was talking to her or interacting with her, and nobody could seem to hear her. And eventually, she just left. And her friend said, "We thought you didn't get arrested with us. Like we thought you were still in the store somewhere." And she literally like she's like going through all the motions going along the thing, and she was like, eventually I left.
Wow.
And so and I still have like a lot more. I just like started looking
That's
into
weird.
it. But again, this takes into so many of this interdimensional, multiversal.
Sure.
Are there
Time traveling.
lines being crossed?
Wow.
And when I can tell you my experiences with psilocybin and ayahuasca, I have definitely come away with the biggest understanding of things being that each individual was creating their own reality. That you were projecting a reality and I was projecting a reality, and that to a certain degree, when we came together, our realities were joining with one another. Our perspectives were kind of lining up, but that the whole world. It's kind of a weird joke, but there was these guys in a moving van in this movie, and they're about to go over a bridge, and they're like, "That's not a bridge. That's a bunch of termites holding hands." And we are a bunch of termites holding hands. We are a bunch of realities stringing themselves together, and what appears to be
Interesting way to say it.
bridge,
Yeah.
what appears to be a very solid bridge to us is actually all of these individuals creating a solid piece of the bridge, which are all folded into one another.
I always try to figure out a good way to envision that idea that we're all, co-creators of reality, and that's it. So we have a bunch of things going on here. I just want to acknowledge our wonderful viewers. And we have blah 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 blah. Tim, who is telling us the actor in the James Bond movie and the Happy Gilmore movie is Richard Kiel. He
Yeah, I
was
don't think he did look muscular enough, Richard Kiel. He's a little lanky.
uh,
I like Richard Kiel.
and then, as far as getting invisible, Angela says she's experienced it. Why don't we have Angela on the show one day? We should be talking to Angela. And Taylor says that just sounds like her normal life.
Yeah.
Becoming invisible. Oh, I don't know if I should say sorry to hear that, Taylor, but
Well, and that's so funny to me as well, with that notion of like, well, this is interesting too, because the one of the people who I watched the video on the invisible thing, they immediately went to sort of like research this because they found it, fascinating. And they found all of this sort of long-term historical basis for this kind of thing, where invisibility was being taught in secret schools as part of some of these ancient beliefs of magic practices and things, and that you could, like, I always believed that like invisibility or something like that could probably be a thing in terms of being able to like block yourself from the perception of the other minds, block yourself from being observed, that you might be ignored because they can't see you. And wouldn't it be interesting to think, in a world of reincarnation, that there are some people who maybe have learned these practices at different times in their existence when they were studying under in the ancient Vedic teachers, and had come to be a meditator who could move themselves into a state of invisibility, and now they're just moving through their daily lives. They're at the library and they just disappear, and they're like, "What the hell is going on?" Like, how am I
crazy. I know Brian Lar, the guy who comes on the tarot with the tarot cards. I know he's we've had some discussions, and he's been into some interesting things. I don't think he's ever spoken about invisibility, but he did do a demonstration for me where he moved a rod around just from balancing on it was bouncing on like this thing, and he just like moved it energetically, and I watched it, I was like amazed. It was really awesome. I mean, listen, I think there's some amazing things going on, right? That
my brother Cody, he does the, he's practiced for a long time, but he'll do those like the energy balls, moving the creating a little energy ball in your hand and moving the thing, and you could see it.
That's awesome. That's so awesome.
Do a song, like, and there are some really interesting possibilities. I mean, and really, like, when you get into it, it's so quick and easy for us to discount these things.
Sorry, Tim is giving us some interesting trivia. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but you can still see a quick shot of him as the Hulk in the opening credits of the show. Tim, are you saying that they?
I want a screenshot.
Yeah, I want to see that. Are you saying that they left like his tryout reels, like in the opening of the show?
For the Hulk, I think his head is more Hulk than Lou Ferrigno's. If we could have gotten his head on Lou Ferrigno's body, I think that would have been the best of both worlds.
I feel like that Jaws character is so memorable. That big, like that face, like
yeah. That's a funny one. Yeah, no, the CERN thing, and honestly, like, for those of you who like want a little bit
Philadelphia
more
experiment, those things too.
Oh yeah, on CERN, they basically break it down, and they literally break down what it may be doing on some level in the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse animated film.
Oh right.
That's true. Kingpin's they are operating at this CERN facility that they had built in an effort for him to try to get his family back, for him to pull his wife and kids from the multiverse and bring them back into his life in one fashion or another. And invariably, they break the barriers between the multiverse, and they end up getting different Spider-Men from different Spider-Men and women from different periods, not periods of time, but different places in the multiverse, and they all come together to fight this thing.
And that's the new movie, right? The new movie it's
animated. It's beautiful. If you have not seen that movie,
no, but there's a new live action movie now.
Well, that's coming out pretty soon, and that actually has kind of a similar premise as well. I don't know if
Oh, it's
using.
not a continuation of the story. I thought it was a continuation of
No,
that
it's not a
story.
continuation of the animated one. In this
Oh,
one,
I thought it was.
Doctor Strange casts a spell, and this spell causes some trouble overall. I
Things
don't know
from other universes come into the universe, like
yeah,
other
well, it makes
other
it
Spider-Men, I
seems
thought.
to make multiple universes
No
sort
Way
of
Home. Yeah,
collide
that's what it's called. No Way Home.
into ours, but it's not, technology being used to do that. Yeah, the CERN, the device at CERN, and I mean, I tell you what, for the people who have any sort of like the satanic thoughts about it, all I can say is explain to me why they did this crazy magic shamanic parade outside of the frickin' CERN device before they opened that baby up. There
What
was like
happened? What did they do?
there was an opening ceremony at this place, and it was suspiciously weird. Some for some people doing some science, it was some really weird spiritual religious kind of shit going on at the science lab. But spirituality is just science that we don't understand yet. And when people say the thing of like, oh, I hate that I'm living in a land where people don't trust science anymore. It's not that we don't trust science. We don't trust the money that is governing how the science gets done. And if you're really spiritual and really open to the possibilities, you start to see that, well, we're creating our own realities. As it says in the Bible, if two people come together and they agree on something, that it will be true in heaven. I think that that's a metaphor for a lot of what's going on. There's so many science books, whether it's health things or science experiments, where there was something that couldn't be proven for a long time. And it wasn't until this one scientist ran into this other scientist who also believed similarly to them. And then wouldn't you know it, all of a sudden they managed to prove the thing. And then sometimes the mainstream science will come in and they'll do their own experiment and they won't exactly get the same results. But
Right.
it's the people coming together in consensus and a thing sort of manifesting itself into reality. That means that there's a lot of wiggle room in what's possible and how things actually come into our reality. And getting down to what CERN we're looking at, like these particles that are really itty bitty, and being able to do high speed collisions with these things. If you look into alien activity, you see that there was a lot of heightened alien activity after we dropped the nuclear bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Allegedly, according to many different sources of people who have been visited or abducted by aliens or had communication with these things, that the explosion of the atomic bomb, it did not just affect our reality. That
Right.
the atomic bomb, on whatever level, it was breaking through, and I don't know if it's sitting there blowing up in every area of the multiverse, or if it's blowing up other aspects of creation that
Right.
that we can't touch or see.
Right.
But it became something that they came and got involved. And I mean, I think
Yeah, no, that's totally interesting. Yeah.
there's a whole bunch of documentaries you can find now where there's the classic footage of this one UFO, and it shoots a beam into the tip of the nuclear warhead. They were doing a test of some kind. And there's a whole bunch of different stories about how at a certain point, the militaries of Russia and America, we were going nuts because all of the nuclear arsenal on the planet was basically taken offline. Like literally, the bombs don't work anymore. We don't know what happened. And there was like a scramble to sort of like what would happen now. But
Right.
allegedly, the higher beings on the higher level, they're
That's
trying to
crazy.
keep us from destroying ourselves and trying to keep us from destroying other levels of this mixed multiverse that we're living
Wow.
in. And
We should definitely talk about this stuff. We should
well, yeah,
have
you
I
look
know
at
this was the other show you wanted to do.
yeah. Well, hey, man, as we
great.
go, it gets to be whatever we want it to be. But
Right.
it's easy to look at one of these things and just go, I don't know. It just seems like crazy shit that people are saying.
Right.
But when you start to look at them all together, and you're just like, this is really interesting.
Right.
We've got some experimentation and things going on that's never been happening before. We've got some alien activity based directly around nuclear warheads.
Activity. Right.
Advanced technology that we have, but very damaging. Not obviously to the
Well,
planet.
that's the military also came out recently and admitted, there was activity around their warships and things going on, and look, I'm excited about all that shit. I can't wait for that to come out.
I am too. And I mean, obviously, there's so much out there.
Disclosure.
People worrying about like, oh, they're going to attack, or like it's like don't be fooled, don't be misled.
All right.
Attack or whatever. It would have
Don't
happened.
flatter yourself, right?
Exactly.
If they wanted to eat us, we would be lunch.
Yeah,
It's like,
they are very
wait, listen.
quietly operating.
I'm going to interrupt because I do see we've almost filled an hour with our
Nice.
nonsense. But our audience, Tim, brought something to our attention, and I looked it up, so we're going to share this together. I don't know if you're going to be able to hear it. Let me make it real loud so that it comes out on the microphone.
Wait a second. Did you find it?
I think I found it.
Ooh.
Oh,
It says wrong body type. It doesn't say wrong head shape.
Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that.
Oh, see, that's a much better Hulk head. That's him.
We
Hey!
found it. We found it. Look at that. That's him, and that's Jaws.
That's funny.
Great. Oh, that was awesome.
That's very funny. Thank you, Tim, for bringing
Totally.
that.
Thank you for that. And then I just also want to share something else. Earlier today, I found this. I was setting up, and I had unplugged my mic, and I put it back in, and I wanted to test it. And I just want you guys to all hear this amazing song that they use to test your speakers.
Testing the speakers on StreamYard. Sounds like they're working. Have a great show. Testing your speakers on StreamYard. Sounds like they're working. Have a great show.
I'm looking for some good cover songs. I'm in.
Presley and StreamYard support. Have a great show.
I think that's the funniest thing. I just had to share that just to fill up some time and make people smile.
It's actually really funny, when you get into pop culture stuff, because for the past bunch of years, more and more, and I really do believe that the universe works in mysterious ways, and that things are always sort of like coming out of us in very intuitive fashions that are informing what has come to pass before and what might come to pass tomorrow, whether we are consciously aware of it or not. And in comics, that multiverse, the idea that there was this universe and that universe, and that they were overlapping and interacting, the Dark Knight's Metal, which is like a recent thing that they did at DC. It's all about like all these Batmans from all these different universes. There's this Batman and there's that Batman and this Batman, and the Batman if he had the Flash powers, Batman if he had Superman powers, Batman of all kinds,
Right.
And similar to the Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse, and these concepts being explored in different ways are just really interesting, as they've taken sort of some prevalence and prominence. That we've got the Black Superman possibility.
Right.
Now Spider-Man's going to be interacting with the Tobey Maguire, and the idea that these other Marvel movies that existed from other film studios could essentially all of a sudden be a part of the tapestry of the Marvel universe today, as the parallel universes cross together, which is just really interesting. And I mean, essentially that is the premise for the Mandela effect, that multiple people from the universe where we say Berenstain Bears, and people in the universe where we said Berenstain Bears, we're now living in the same universe, but only one of us can be right about that thing when we go look at it. And that does jive completely with this individual creation of your universe, and that everybody is just sort of like our consciousnesses are holding it all together in the form of the planet, the way we see it. And that even like that there was a sort of a thing of like the planet could be round or it could be flat, depending on what we thought. That if we thought it was flat, that it would be, because that's what we thought, and our consciousnesses together was what was forming the thing.
Sure.
These are all some really interesting, premises. That it's really it's what we make it. It's where we believe, and even that's something like hell. We would go to hell if we believed in hell, and if we thought that we deserved to go to hell.
Well,
if we didn't, that's not what we. No,
well, I think we've had the conversation, and I think I've expressed this before, that my perception of thoughts and how powerful they are, and even just imagination. Angela just said something about like the song, "The comic books are coming true," um, and even in my how am I trying to say this in relation to the multiverse and all of that, I feel like anything that ever has been thought, put to film, put to story, like these horrible creatures and monsters and Godzilla and King Kong, I think it all exists in some universe.
Somewhere.
It
Yeah.
is a reality in some
I agree.
universe. It's a reality in the vibration of thought that created it, right? So
Well,
I
exactly.
think that,
I might say that
you
if it
know,
exists as a thought, it exists.
that's exactly what I think.
Where exactly and in what like form, it maybe
What's
exists
up,
might be a
sunshine?
little different. Hey, sunshine, might be a little different than the reality of the comic book that somebody came up with or the science fiction movie that somebody came up. But literally, the mere fact of, I mean, what is Godzilla really? He's just a gigantic lizard. So it's really it's interesting. And if there's gigantic lizard and then there's a fire breathing monster, and maybe they're not the same thing, maybe it's not that there's a gigantic fire breathing lizard monster, but there is a gigantic lizard and there is a fire breathing, like that's that idea of the multiverse, like is stringing these things together and
Right.
creating sort of amalgamations of all the things that are in existence and are within the possibilities, and that's why they're in our minds. And really essentially it becomes whatever can be in your mind can be of reality, because everything that is
Right.
our reality is from the mind.
It comes from
So
somewhere, right?
yeah, so if
Exists in
you're
some level.
we talk about all the time, we're living in a giant mind, and the thought comes before form. What came first, the chicken or the
Speaking
egg?
of which, that new Matrix movie also looks amazing.
Looks very cool.
The
Looks
new
very cool.
Matrix movie, the new Spider-Man movie. We're gonna have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I'm gonna see the new Ghostbusters maybe tomorrow.
Oh, the new Ghostbusters
Yeah,
movie.
yeah.
Somehow we should somehow combine that conversation into this show. That was always fun. You had that on your other show.
Wow, yeah, fun stuff. But yeah, no, it really is very, very interesting what the possibilities are. Oh, and I was going to say, one other thing that like plays into this is some of these fabled monsters, these cryptozoology kind of things like the Mothman, which is really before it was the Birdman. And actually, if you look up Birdman and like giant bird, thunderbirds, things like that, just a giant bird. So often these crypto things they get hard to find because there's so many names for them. Even within the context of just like America, we have Bigfoot sightings in half of the states. I mean, I think it's actually more than that. I think it's like almost every state has Bigfoot sightings of some kind.
Really?
Each area, they've got their own name for it. They call him the smelly bog monster. It's a Bigfoot. He just lives in the swamp.
It's a
They
Bigfoot.
call him the Yeti, and he lives in the snow. They call it the Sasquatch because he's from Canada. They
Right.
call it Bigfoot in a certain area of the country, but then in other areas of the country, there are other names.
Right.
The skunk ape. The skunk ape is a freaking Bigfoot.
Skunk ape. I've never heard those.
Listen to these stories, and the basic thing, it's just sort of like one little extraneous detail about the color of the thing's fur or how it was described. Like I think some of the ones that are in the swamp have occasionally been described as having like some sort of like scales or whatever. But these things are usually seen from far away, and they disappear pretty quick. And these characters, we've never found a body. There's always sort of weirdness associated with it, but there's also glowing orbs that sort of appear before or after sightings of the Bigfoots. There are literally there have been stories of people who were making camp or out in the woods late at night or whatever it might be, and literally like a portal opened and a Bigfoot just walked into existence right next to the person.
Wow.
And if this is, again, if there's a certain amount of empty space, or the space between things that some things have access to and some things can zip into. When one of my favorite, I love to be in nature when I work with psilocybin, and I work with these plants very spiritually. And one of my favorite places in California is hot springs, and I would do the mushrooms at the hot springs so I could experience the nature, especially the rocks formations. And I would see these, basically I would see the mountain in a way more complex way, with just filled with sacred geometry, filled with additional patterning and additional sort of shape and curvature and more space than was there. And I remember having a moment where, like, sort of like I'll just say it this way, that the mushrooms wore off or whatever, and my vision of the mountain changed, and it went from this complex version that I was seeing to a much more simple version. And what I realized I was seeing was sort of the superpositions that were available to the stone when it was forming, and that the first consciousness that
Wow.
to the rock, Schrodinger's cat selected how the rock formed.
Right.
The rock was a number of possibilities until a consciousness came, and it consciously anchored it into.
So you saw that when you were on the mushrooms. You saw
Yes,
the
I saw
other states of it.
I saw the
Wow.
additional positions that the
That's
rock
interesting.
could have formed into.
You haven't
And
told me
when I
that story. I
saw
haven't heard
that,
that one.
I literally went, "Wow, why couldn't a Bigfoot or like some being that had a more natural interdimensional relationship with this planet
Right.
find holes in the mountain,
Yeah. Oh,
and
that's amazing.
crevices and things?" Because I'm literally seeing it whilst in this higher consciousness. I'm seeing these possibilities. I'm seeing these differences in how the rock is formed. And then, when that goes away, I'm left with the way it actually formed. But if we're talking about this multiverse of possibilities, essentially I'm looking into the multiverse. And because I'm looking at an organic thing without a consciousness that's anchoring itself into a thing, I'm the consciousness. And now from this open state of mind, I'm seeing the open possibilities of this mountain. Well, I could literally like create the universe where there's an opening to the inside of the mountain right there, where there's a cave. I could literally pick and choose and create caves wherever I wanted. Every time there was I could literally be like, this universe.
And that's just like a microcosm of doing that with space-time.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Me
mean,
pick the version where this planet's closer, and now I'm there, and then I switch back to the other version where I'm in my universe and the planet's further away. I mean, you could use these in so many fashions.
That's amazing.
To literally go, oh, well, I want the universe where it's like this, and utilize that aspect. If you were living in a
imagine we were at that level where we could function that way.
Well, and I really,
there's got to be a version of us that it actually is there.
Exactly. And again, because the idea exists that there must be, and if there are, and we are seeing some evidence of, well, there's these beings, and people occasionally see them, but they're like, we never find any bodies, and we can't seem to quite get a hold of them. And there's a lot of interesting, there's a lot of UFO type activity and things like that associated with the Bigfoot sometimes. And a lot of times these things aren't talked about because, as somebody said, it's like it's hard enough to get somebody to talk about the Bigfoot thing. We're gonna bring in aliens too. We got to get them. We got to convince them of the aliens and the Bigfoot at the same time.
Right.
Who wants to do that? But at the same time, there's this area.
Wait, what's the difference? It's all the same thing anyway.
Yeah, I forget it. I forget what it's called. I think it's Bridgewater or something like that. There's a triangle, like the Bridgewater Triangle, and it's like in Michigan and Massachusetts. No, not Michigan, Massachusetts, and it's in the East Coast, not too far from us, a little higher than New York. And it's this triangular area where they have sightings of Bigfoot, sightings of the Birdman or Thunderbirds, ghost sightings, like literally, like, oh yeah, that's the hitchhiking ghost who gets in people's car and like it's on that highway and blah blah blah. Out here, I just found out there is a motorcycle that runs people off the road, a ghost motorcycle that people see all the time.
Really?
Causes accidents. I heard about it through my girlfriend's dad, who's a high-level police officer out here, and the story's been that he's caused a lot of. I thought there was a motorcycle. He came out
wow.
Up the road and it was like, oh wow, again we're hearing.
So let's gather up some of these like stories and talk about them like on an episode.
I mean, they're fun.
There are things like I just found out in the last, I don't know, probably 3 years ago, I found out about the Georgia Guidestones. You know about the Georgia Guidestones?
Yes, I do.
And I'm just it's like another rabbit hole. You look into it and you're like, where does this come from? What the hell is this?
Why did they do that? Why did
and it's like reality. It really exists. It's like, it's crazy.
It is crazy. And, and again, that thing of like, when it's broken down into so many different, there's so many different things to look at, which is why I love this. There's a documentary, I think it's on Amazon and it's free right now. It's something like Bridgewater Triangle, but if you type in triangle, it should come up. And this,
Let me see what I
because
can
of this
find.
area, because of this triangular area where there's so much of this activity all in one place, it's sort of mind-boggling, what's going on and what's going on within the vicinity of each other. Because, you hear somebody talking about the Bigfoot story and you're like, that's ridiculous. And little do you know, there's also fucking a dozen other crazy things happening within miles of that same location that just, they're not attached to the Bigfoot story when you do a Google search.
Right.
You got to have the right keywords to Google the Birdman, who's also seen in that vicinity, and or Google the fairies that occasionally are seen in the forest that's nearby. Like it is so many things happening at once, and we end up sort of the Bridgewater Triangle. I highly recommend this movie.
I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch it now.
Oh, it's
after
so
the
good.
show, yeah.
And Missing 411, The Hunted, that too is a really awesome documentary. I also recommend
this one down here.
Mothman documentaries. I always used to doubt the Mothman because he was just a little supernatural, but the real stories of the Mothman, it's just a sensational name they came up with. It's just a giant bird, a really, really big bird, and there are some great stories. I mean, just
Ninja knows about the triangle. She's born and raised in Massachusetts.
Man, the triangle is nutty. The triangle is nutty, and it just encapsulates so many different points of interest. Like, wow, look at all of these things happening, and to give room for this sort of thing, the multiverse, the collection of all of our consciousnesses, all these things together, and these are the things that make it possible that maybe the Earth is a cell splitting, and there's one going this way and one going that way. Because how would we know as our consciousnesses move into like just think about it in terms of me and Michael and people like you. We start focusing on consciousness, and we're focusing more on community. We're focusing on a better world, and then there are other people who are getting denser and denser, and I need to make money, and I need to and fuck community, and well, they're going off this way, and I'm not really in magnetic contact with them anymore, and they're not really in magnetic contact with me anymore. And it's certainly at a certain world, as our polarity is so far apart, perhaps on some level, do we not split? And there is their world that they're living in, which is this kill or be killed world, and there's our world where we want to make it better. And if these vibrations don't fall in line with one another, essentially, some of these things, like during Dolores Cannon's books have said, these worlds are literally just sort of leaving, never to be returned.
So when you were talking about that, I was wondering, because right now, I think I've talked about it on the show. I'm kind of split with my mom about basic beliefs, and she's kind of believes the mainstream media's narrative, and so if we do end up splitting, does that mean, like, in my universe she passes, or do I get some other version of her in my universe?
Well, I think
she gets some other version of me in her universe.
Well, I think there's kind of multiple possibilities, and I mean, it's like this is like it's all speculative, when you get into that this kind of territory, because this is obviously the new age that we're living in. I would suggest that if there is a version of the universe where she can be with you and can be vibrating, because I have similar things with like my family, where like I know that things are a little bit crazier than like my father can wrap his head around right now. And I just leave all the possibilities open, and I don't have any interest in like forcing any of this on him or rubbing it in his face. But I do think that essentially, because his vibration is really high, he's a good egg. Most of the people who are having that sort of thing, where like the reality is kind of like being formed for them by the news and what the news will give credibility to or won't, eventually I think the bubble just bursts on what the news is covering, and that new things have to be brought to the forefront to help balance out some of these things, so that there can be more harmony within the people who are understanding that there's some possibilities going on that others aren't entertaining right now. But at the same time, that might be the thing as well, where eventually your mom passes away. eventually these people who can't take the density and they are stuck in their ways, they just kind of move on, and the earth is inherited by these younger minds that are able to open themselves up to some of these concepts, and those who were there and close to doing it. It's definitely an interesting thing. I worry about that myself every now and then. Like, I want them to come with me. I love these people. But, in defense of the mainstream, your average mainstream person, when I was a kid, I was a major league atheist. And the mainline sort of belief of the atheist is that the world is crazy and going nuts and getting nuttier on lots of levels. And the only thing that's going to fix it is if we can all get on the same page. Like, just follow the damn science. If we could all just follow the thing, like, let's all follow the same path, and then we can come together and we can make some changes, and the world can be better. But as long as you're going, no, it's not like that. No, you're seeding the seeds of dissent. And it was like being upset with the religious people because they were keeping us backwards and they were stopping us from coming into an agreement on things. But that's it's sort of, they want us to get to a place of agreement on our limitations, and our limitations are not so. And that's why so many people have held so hard to their religious beliefs in one way or another, because on some level they just knew that there was more and there was something else. And and as dogma has lifted and whatnot, I think we've got a much more healthy contingent of spiritual and religious people. But those in the mainstream who just want, come on, can't we all just get the vaccine? Can't we all just, we're in agreement on this, aren't we? In agreement on this? Why can't we be in agreement? Why can't you become in agreement on the thing? If we can all agree, it would be better. Little do we know, I think we are largely in agreement. It's just how we have these conversations that is cutting us apart and making it seem like we're all so divided and so away from one another. Also, a real a symptom of it is like this denying other people's realities. Like, you are living in a reality where you were abducted by aliens. No, you weren't. And all these people yesterday were conspiracy theorists.
Right.
Now the government is, it's like how it took years for them to be vindicated.
Oh my God, I saw a headline. I saw a headline that totally pissed me off, but it was so indicative of the massaging that they do to people's brains. It said, vaccinated families can feel good about family gatherings this year, basically inferring that anybody who's unvaccinated can't feel good about it.
Don't feel good.
Don't feel good about it.
Feel good. No, I mean,
something really, like that. I was just like, I'm like, what is this ridiculousness? Like, they're just like, it's so crazy. It's insane. So crazy.
To have a health nut and somebody who studies bodybuilding and nutrition and all these things, who doesn't like to use drugs and pharmaceutical medicines, the idea that they can't go, no, I'd like to take care of myself and prepare and protect myself from COVID with vitamins, regimen.
Right.
What? Who
you decide? Yeah.
What right does anybody have to go? No,
you're going to get me sick.
Science that I
not right. Not only are they saying no, but they're condemning them as like, ew, you're dirty and you're going to get me sick.
Yes, and there is more than one way to skin the cat. I mean, to pet the cat.
We're talking about some crazy things here tonight.
Yeah, skin the cat's not the nicest thing. My friend said we could say pet the cat. I was like, yeah, pet the cat. Don't skin the cat. But there's a lot of ways to pet the cat. You don't have to do it just one way. And this sort of myopic, like, do it my way. It's very much a atheist mindset of like, I believe in the religion of science and I need everybody to get on that same bandwagon and believe in that. At the end of the day, myself, when it comes to science, is, I think that science and religion, are just two different sides of the same coin, one that we understand far less. And, there are people out there who are attempting to do things in their own way, in, subscribing to their own beliefs that are just as valid. Mm-hmm. And for anybody to walk in and go, no, that is invalid. I invalidate how you think and what you feel about your future and our future. And I say it's got to be this way. I'm not sitting there going, you must do it the way that I do it. I'm not going, you've got COVID, go take ayahuasca. Like mandate everybody's taking ayahuasca. That's not happening.
Right.
There are other people who are more passively going, yeah, everybody live and let live. And then there's this contingent of people going, and they're like getting so upset that the other people won't just get on board the wagon that they're on. And that's okay. You can be on any wagon you want. I'm not going to stop you. Whatever you feel good about, that's really my belief more than anything, is that what you
Right.
believe you achieve. And if a vaccine makes you feel better, then I think you should absolutely go get a vaccine. And and if a vaccine doesn't make you feel
Absolutely.
better, I don't think you should get a vaccine, because I think
Absolutely.
your health is going to be determined largely by how you feel about your health. If
Right.
you feel like you're doing the best thing for yourself to take care of yourself, you're going to stay healthy.
Well, I'm certainly on board with that. I mean,
Well, this has been an interesting episode of the live stream of consciousness.
yeah, just actually getting into just a live stream of
Three
consciousness.
days. And hey, everybody out there, I want you to know and understand, from mine and Michael's perspective, like, we're just open-minded. We're not deniers of anything. It tends to be the certain people who are living like in this little sheltered world where they're like, nah, I don't believe that. No, we didn't found a body of Bigfoot. No, in order to like think that there might be a Bigfoot, you need to go and read about Native American people and how many different names they have for a Bigfoot. You need to go and read or listen to interviews with individual people and then decide by yourself, do I believe what this person said? Do I believe that they believe that this interaction happened? And you do that enough and you realize that there's some really interesting things going on in this world. There are some really interesting possibilities. There are books and thousands and thousands of words written on the multiverse and the new earth and all these different things that different people think are possible, that have happened or may happen. And we're down to entertain these ideas. And as you look at enough of them, you start to see how they all kind of coalesce with one another, and they kind of touch upon each other. And it's like one extra possibility leads to another extra possibility. And there are other people living in a really limited world where nothing of extraordinary significance happens besides the 3D day-to-day of going to work and growing old and dying and having kids, or probably not in that exact order. But there is more to think about. There is more to ponder, and being open to a live and let live scenario where everybody is open to explore the ideas in various ways, and that we're not going to sit there and deny everybody's personal experience. It's not that we're sitting there going, yep, the world is definitely splitting like I don't know. I'm not sure. I see that there's some evidence for it. I see that there's a lot of people who have talked about that and some similar things. And I go, oh, look at that. And that kind of connects to that. And that kind of that. But I can't know.
And sometimes it's a metaphor,
Yeah,
I mean, sometimes it's not necessarily so literal.
Yeah, but a lot of people are basically claiming to know that they know that it's not like that. And
Right,
you
right,
can't know that it's not like that. And if you can't know that it's not like that, then you really, if you want to be a really truly wise person, you have to leave yourself open to the idea that, well, I suppose it could be like that,
Right.
might be like that. And, and I'll be prepared for any scenario that we find out. But in reality, it does seem to be we're living in this multiverse of possibilities where pretty much anything that anybody can think is probably on the table, at least on some level, at least in some dimension.
Somewhere, someplace.
Multiverse, right? So, that's the place that we're coming from. And me and Michael, these are our favorite types of conversations to have, of like,
Yeah.
what could possibly be.
I feel like we should prepare some stuff. Like we will. Let's talk about it. Let's pick a subject.
We'll
Yeah.
some things to show you. But seriously, watch that Bridgewater
I'm gonna
Triangle.
watch that tonight.
It's so
for
awesome.
sure.
If you guys, that's your homework assignment, everybody. Go watch the Bridgewater Triangle documentary on Amazon. It is pretty awesome. Just like, especially for like ADHD personality, you're gonna like run through the gamut of every possible weird thing that could be going on in America in that little triangle. Man, everything's happening there. It's crazy.
I
And
can't wait to watch it.
most of these things I've had no personal experience with, but I'm hearing the stories. I'm seeing the personal truths of people that they're experiencing things like that. And I just think it's really neat to hear those stories and to know that we might be living in a world that's a little bit bigger than I imagined it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Anyway,
You
Thank
know
so
what?
much.
I'm just gonna put out. I want to put out into the universe because we've been trying to figure out who to get on the show.
Uh-huh.
I
Bigfoot?
want
Me too.
I want to get Russell Brand on the show.
Oh, it'd be amazing.
I want to get Russell Brand on the
We
show.
love Russell
I'm
Brand.
putting that out into the universe right now.
Sounds good. We're gonna get Russell Brand on the show.
I would love to talk to Russell Brand. We would have a lot of fun. You, him, and I
He's my favorite
in a
journalist.
conversation.
Amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff there. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean
All
to.
you guys,
I digress.
Thank you, Nancy, for the Rams Network as she's recovering from her recent surgery. But thank you to all of our listeners. Thank you guys for being here. Thanks to everybody who listened and didn't comment and whatnot. We know that you guys are out there too. We appreciate you guys so much. We are putting together our calendar for December and January. So we'll be putting out like an actual like little advanced bid of like who's going to be coming on, and it's cool. I got a ton of people who I'm just trying to angle them to when they're available. But a lot of the people that we've been trying to get on the show right now, they just
You
haven't been
think
available.
Slash is spiritual? Slash? You think he has
Slash?
spiritual?
Why he wants to just like
I
Slash?
don't know. I'm just trying to think of
Well,
some people.
Slash.
I just want to meet him. I just want to talk to
I
him.
want him to be spiritual so I can bring him on the show.
Yeah, just see.
Yeah, wishful thinking. That sounds good.
I'm throwing all this sorts of weird stuff out
Just
there.
throwing it out, throwing it at the wall. It's okay. All right, man. Love you all, and join us next time. Another fabulous episode of the live stream of consciousness.
Bam.